On the 16th of November last year, in a stadium in Rabat, a Nigerian midfielder named Frank Onyeka scored in the third minute. The Super Eagles were one game from the World Cup, a goal up almost before anyone sat down, and for about half an hour it looked like Nigeria were going to North America for the biggest sporting competition in human history. They are not going to North America. By the end of that night, Victor Osimhen had limped off injured, DR Congo had equalized, and the whole thing had dragged through extra time into a penalty shootout. Calvin Bassey missed, Moses Simon missed, Nigeria's keeper saved two and kept them breathing. And then, in sudden death, Semi Ajayi stepped up, missed, and the Congolese captain buried the next one. That was it. Second World Cup in a row Nigeria will watch from home. But there's something that stung more than the penalties. The team that knocked them out, DR Congo, did it with a defence built partly on players born and raised in England. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who'd played for England's youth teams. Axel Tuanzebe, same story. Nigeria filed a protest with FIFA, arguing those players shouldn't have been eligible. FIFA threw it out. Congo were going to the World Cup, partly on the backs of footballers England had produced. And that is the cruel joke at the heart of this whole thing. Because if there is one country on earth that grows World Cup footballers in other people's countries, it's Nigeria. The difference? In Nigeria's case, they don't get to keep them. This is the story of the team Nigeria could have sent to this World Cup. Superstars. World-beating talents. But not a single one of them actually playing for Nigeria. And based on present circumstance, the last player may just turn out to be the gut-wrenching story of all. Start with the best of them because he's having the best year of anyone in this story. Michael Olise. A few weeks ago, he was voted the best player in the German Bundesliga, the whole league, for the season just gone. 15 goals, 19 assists. Bayern scored more goals this season than any team in the history of the league, and Olise was the one pulling the strings. Then Didier Deschamps named him in France's World Cup squad, in an attack next to Mbappé and Dembélé. Not a passenger, a starter. He was born in Hammersmith, London in 2001. His middle name is Akpovi, a name from Delta State in southern Nigeria. His father, Vincent, is Nigerian. And because his mother is French-Algerian, Michael grew up eligible for 4 different national teams. England, France, Algeria, Nigeria. 4. Almost nobody in football gets that. Nigeria wanted him. During Gernot Rohr's time as Super Eagles manager, the approach was made. The bloodline was right there, the paperwork was possible, the door was open. He picked France. And when they asked him why, there was no speech. He said his mum is French, he'd spent time there as a kid, the connection was just real. That's it. The country that won was the one he'd actually lived in. But ask him about the rest, and he won't pretend it isn't there. He said plainly that he carries all 4 countries in him, that he feels each one. The Nigeria in him didn't vanish when he pulled on a blue shirt. Unfortunately, that doesn't change the fact that he will not represent that flag this summer. Next, let's travel less than an hour away from Hammersmith to follow the story of another kid, this time from Greenwich. After school, he'd run to the cage. That's what they call the fenced concrete pitches wedged between the council blocks in that part of southeast London. He'd stay till his parents called him in. Wouldn't eat, just played. All day and into the night, because, as he put it later, there wasn't much else to do. That's where the love came from. His name is Eberechi Eze, born in Greenwich in 1998 to Igbo parents from Nigeria. His middle name is Oluchi, and his road was nothing like Olise's golden run. Arsenal took him into their academy at 9 and released him at 13. He said it felt like losing a huge piece of who he was. Then came the rejections, one after another. Fulham, Reading, Millwall. A teenager being told no by club after club, going back to the cage each time. And while England's academies kept passing him around, Nigeria was watching. The Nigeria Football Federation opened talks with his family. He even spent time in a Nigerian youth setup. This wasn't invented after he got famous. It actually happened. At that point, his future was still genuinely up for grabs. But you already know how the story goes. He chose England. Last November, he scored a hat-trick against Tottenham in the North London derby, the first player in the history of that fixture to do it, at Arsenal, the same club that had let him go as a boy. Now he's wearing England's number 10, and he's in pole position to start their first game of the World Cup. The only thing Nigerian he'll be representing at the World Cup is the name on his shirt. Our next player is a classic example of Nigerian pride gone wrong, and in a few minutes you'll understand why we say so. For this kid, his family kept the door open on purpose. Bukayo Saka, born in Ealing, West London, 2001. His parents, Adenike and Yomi, came from Nigeria in the 1990s. Yoruba, roots in Kwara State, where Saka has gone back to visit his grandparents. They came for the reason people always cross an ocean, a better shot for their kids than the one they were handed. Here's how much of Nigeria they kept alive in a house in West London. When Saka sat down with the BBC, he introduced himself like this: Bukayo Moses Ayoyinka Temidayo Saka. Full Yoruba name. Said with pride, by England's most important attacker. He said his parents grew up in Nigeria, so their values got planted in him. Even his first name is Yoruba. Bukayo means adds to happiness. It seems perfect, right? A player who loves and represents his roots so boldly probably would love to play for the country. Well, yes and no. You see, Bukayo was actually approached by a delegation from the Nigerian Federation. However, his family said he was too young at the time to make a choice. That was really just a polite no. Of course, this bruised the ego of Nigeria's Football Federation president, Amaju Pinnick. At the time, Pinnick said publicly, "There are many players that play like Bukayo Saka in Nigeria. We don't want to go begging any player." From Saka's perspective, choosing Nigeria would mean adapting to an environment he'd never lived in. All his documents said he was English. He'd already played with the England youth from under 16 to under 21 and got a senior call at the age of 19. He came up through Arsenal's academy from the age of 7 and basically never left. And so, it only makes sense that the Premier League champion will be at this World Cup for the Three Lions. And every time the camera finds him, we'll see a Yoruba kid from Ealing carrying Kwara State onto the biggest stage in the sport. The third Englishman is almost too on the nose because of what his father does for a living. Eze and Madueke. Born in Barnet, North London, 2002, to Igbo parents, both of whom came to England young, went to school here, met here. He's talked about flying to Lagos as a kid and taking a boat out to Banana Island or Lekki just to chill. He said Nigeria was always special to him, and his father, Ifeanyi, didn't just keep the connection, he went back into it. The man scouts football talent in Nigeria. He's turned up in Uyo, invited by Nigerian football people, talking about the young players he's seen and the work they still need. Sit with that. A Nigerian father living in England, raising a son for England's national team, flying home to dig for the next generation of Nigerian footballers. And when reporters asked him point blank whether Noni might one day choose Nigeria, he wouldn't bite. Talked about the kids in Uyo instead. Said nothing about his own son's flag. Noni chose England. As a teenager, he made the bold call to leave Tottenham for PSV in the Netherlands just to play real first-team football, came back to win trophies, and is now an Arsenal player after a move worth nearly £50 million. He's in England's squad too, but it doesn't stop at England. Switzerland are taking two: Manuel Akanji, the centre-back who spent years at Manchester City, and Noah Okafor. Germany have Felix Nmecha, whose family, like Eze's and Madueke's, is Igbo. Norway are bringing Antonio Nusa. He'll line up next to Erling Haaland. Then there's Austria, which is its own kind of remarkable. David Alaba is there, the former Bayern and Real Madrid man, over 100 caps for Austria, and the son of a Yoruba father from Ogere in Ogun State. And alongside him, Akanji Chukwuemeka, born in Vienna to Nigerian parents, raised in England, played for England's youth teams, and then, just a few months ago, switched his allegiance to Austria. Another one, gone, this time mid-career, and the one that twists hardest of all. South Africa, the team that finished above Nigeria in qualifying, the team whose group results helped send the Super Eagles down the long road to that night in Rabat, has a young defender named Immigrant. Nigerian father, but he chose South Africa, which makes perfect sense. His mother is South African, he was born there, went to high school there, and started his career there. But the irony remains the fact that a player with Nigerian blood coursing through his veins is at this World Cup, partly thanks to keeping Nigeria out of it. It's easy to get carried away by arguments on heritage and respect and national pride. But there's one thing none of the talking points will mention. Every single one of these players exists because of a decision somebody made years before they were born. Adenike and Yomi Saka leaving Nigeria in the 90s, Eze's parents settling on a hard estate in Greenwich because that's what they could afford. The Maduekes arriving young and building a whole life from scratch. Vincent Olise leaving Nigeria, passing through Ghana, ending up in West London. None of these people were raising foreign footballers. They didn't know. They were doing the ordinary, enormous thing immigrants do, betting everything that their children would get a bigger life on the other side of the water. And the children grew up genuinely belonging to two places at once, English accents and Yoruba names, Sunday afternoons in the cage and summers in Lagos. So when the time came to choose a country, most of them chose the one they'd actually lived in, the one they were born in, not the one in the photographs on the wall. Some see it as betrayal, but that's just what happens to the second generation, in every country, in every era. You belong most to the ground under your own feet. Nigeria didn't qualify for this World Cup. They got knocked out by another country's diaspora and lost the appeal. But go through the squads, team by team, and the Nigerian story is everywhere in this tournament. It's just wearing everybody else's colours. Out of all of these players, who's the one you'd most want to see in green? And who did we miss? Because there are more of them than one video can hold, and you may know some names we didn't say. Subscribe to Odd Nigeria if you want to hear more fascinating stories from the largest black nation on earth.